Like pieces of candy, video games come in many different types. And during the 2000s, a certain type of video game had began to rise in popularity, that being the licensed games. Also during this time period saw the rise of a very iconic license, that being, of course, SpongeBob SquarePants. It was the perfect match, and over the years, fans of the Yellow Sponge would see release to many video games that would become instilled in their memory banks. However, what about the games that were forgotten about? What about the one 3D platformer that everyone seems to forget? And if they don't forget, they want to. But why? Why is that? Many believe it is because these players fear to face the revenge of the Flying Dutchman. Alright gamers, it is finally time for our Halloween spectacular. So today we're going to be talking about a game that is very near and dear to my heart. Yes, it is one of those famous childhood games. We all have them, we all have a sense of nostalgia for them, and that makes us either criticize it a lot more harshly or forgive it for its very apparent flaws. And today we're going to be talking about SpongeBob SquarePants Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, as you've heard in the intro. Before we get into actually talking about the game though, I like to talk about my own personal history with it. Growing up, I loved cartoons, and Nickelodeon was that channel for me. Every day after school, sometimes before school, I'd sit up watching it. SpongeBob was usually always the one on, but even compared to other Nickelodeon shows like Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, Jimmy Neutron, SpongeBob was always the one that hooked me the most. So with gaming being another huge part of my life, it would make sense for these two things to combine. And what's great about growing up with SpongeBob on the GameCube is that almost all of the games seem to have a really good reputation among fans. All except one, and that is the game we're talking about today. So while I know this game doesn't have the best reputation, it's one that I actually really enjoyed growing up. I actually enjoyed this game so much that I preferred it to Battle for Bikini Bottom as a kid. I don't share those sentiments today anymore. But for 3 specific reasons I preferred this game, and I'd love to share those as we go through the video, but I mean, that just goes to show like how much fun I really had with this game growing up. And also, it's spooky time out there, or at least it was. So it would of course be the perfect time to look at a spooky video game. And it looks like it's the perfect time too, as our salty friend SpongeBob seems to be waiting for you and me. So let's all go down, down, down to the bottom of the sea.
What a silly dream.
Bro, like right off the bat. Have you guys ever like went back to bed when you have to get up for school or work, and then in your head you're like, oh shoot, I'm asleep when I should be just resting my eyes, and you just jolt right up? Like, that gives off that energy. He Undertakered that. Alright, now here's another thing too. There's just too much going on in the animation department. The body, hands, everything's moving. His eyes are like not synced. SpongeBob's one eye will move to the right, and then the left eye will follow slightly slower. It's like every little piece of his body is animated separately. And you know what? Like, props to the developers for actually hand animating all of these cutscenes instead of just putting the models on a basic repeating track. But it's a very difficult job to make those hand animated scenes look natural, and when it doesn't work out, it could leave it looking a little messy. Alright, we're not even out of SpongeBob's room yet, and I'm already complaining a lot. Let's try to get a little forward. Something I really like is that a lot of the house is able to be interacted with, like the TV and the infamous bathroom noises. It's really appreciated when games do that, like having things be more than just window dressing. So SpongeBob's gonna be heading off to work soon, and before he goes, he's gonna play fetch with his little snail Gary. We need to get his fetching stick though. It probably is in the kitchen, and...
Don't you think your little friend Gary would like to play some fetch?
That is not the French narrator. The French narrator is a common reoccurring voice, technically is a character in the SpongeBob show, but in this game, He gets so close to the mic and talks so slow.
Very well. Then move next to his fetching stick and press the action button to pick it up. Then you can carry the stick to Gary and delight him.
Like, the vibe is so off. It's weird because he's not even credited in the game's credits, like the voice actor. It's usually Tom Kenny, which is known for SpongeBob, and the French narrator himself has a very distinct voice, but this just so clearly isn't him, unless Tom Kenny's just doing a different voice, but it sounds so different and scary. So anyway, SpongeBob gets the stick, he throws it, he really weirdly throws it. It's like the animation issues again, but his pants are like stuck in place and his whole body is stretching. It's so odd, the throwing animation. Anyway, SpongeBob throws the stick and Gary brings back a sealed box. Like, how did he dig that up in a few seconds? Anyway, SpongeBob opens it up, there's a bottle in there, gold coins fly out, which admittedly is a really, really clever reason for why there are coins all around the world. They're being scattered and transported from being released from the Dutchman's crate. Oh yeah, spoiler alert. There's a bottle in there and it's rubbed and the Flying Dutchman comes out, which I don't think the Flying Dutchman was ever a genie. Like, that's a genie thing, right? You know, he does have a little ghostly tail, so I guess it would make sense for him to be stuck inside a bottle. And the Flying Dutchman basically says that whoever releases him from his slumber has to join his ghostly crew. SpongeBob brought him out of the bottle, but Gary technically found the crate. And then SpongeBob just straight up snitches on Gary.
Hold on there, Mr. Dutchman, sir. Technically speaking, it was not me who found you. Gary's the one who dug you up.
Maybe he didn't expect the Dutchman to take, like, a snail, but still, like, foul play, dude. Basically what this conversation amounts to is that Dutchman is gonna take Gary to have him join his ghostly crew. I can't blame him, Gary is pretty sick, but SpongeBob's gonna do what he can to try and save him.
Don't worry, Gary. I'll think of something, and it'll be the type of something that will save you. You can bet on it. Oh.
And that brings us to Bikini Bottom, the first world of this game, kind of. It's like a hub world, but also it's a world in itself. It's really cool because it being a level, you get to interact with it more than you would a hub world. But still having it as a hub area means it's still doing the perfect job of tying all of the other levels together. Which is actually one of the 3 reasons why I prefer this game to Battle for Bikini Bottom. It just felt a lot more like Bikini Bottom. It's a little closed in, like there's a lot of mountain areas, which I actually do enjoy about this game. It looks like it's trying to do its best to not have out-of-bound areas be too obvious, which is really appreciated. I love when developers try to make out-of-bound areas naturally crafted into the world instead of just having like an area that just has an invisible wall. Bikini Bottom itself is pretty faithful. It's only 2 areas. You'll have the houses of SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward, and then you'll have the Krusty Krab and Chum Bucket area. I don't know what this little poisonous sludge behind the Chum Bucket is. I've always been curious about it, like something was hiding here, but nope, it's just there. I guess Plankton's just dumping radioactive goop. Like, my guy, how are you making that jambalaya? Pretty small. Bikini Bottom technically does have a lot more to offer, although we'll be traveling around 2 different worlds. But as for this first world, pretty small. I think another area could have worked, but it is the starting area and a hub world, so it does its job. Back to the actual game, you'll be learning about core mechanics of the games, such as gliding, belly slamming, power jumping, rolling, which, to be honest, I've never found a use for in this game, but it's pretty cute looking, so I'll let it slide. You'll also find these tents popping up around Bikini Bottom, which can change into 4 different costumes. You only have access to the jellyfishing gear right now. We'll get to the other costumes when we get to them. You have to unlock them, which is actually really cool. It serves as a sense of progression for the game. As for now, though, let's use the jellyfishing net. The unique aspect about it is that it can catch jellyfish and hook onto, well, hooks. And they make a reference to hooky. That's really cool. And that'll nab you a letter. Oh shoot, the letters, right, the main point of the game. So basically, scattered around the world are letters that spell out SpongeBob, and they're done by completing certain tasks. The menu actually does a pretty good job of letting you know like what you need to do for each letter piece. It doesn't tell you where to go, which is a little confusing at points, but each world isn't large enough to where you wouldn't be able to find where it's located. Basically, exploring the world will get you all the different letter pieces. If you guys have ever played Banjo-Kazooie, it's very similar to that, where you just have this open level that's not too big, and you'll get the main collectible as you go along. And unlike Mario 64, you won't get kicked out of a certain level after you collect collected. It's all contained in the one level, which is really cool because the sense of flow is great. The game is pretty easy, levels are pretty small, so you'll be collecting letter pieces really quick. So as you're going around Bikini Bottom, you'll be picking up these letter pieces as you go, and once you collect all these pieces, you'll be transported inside SpongeBob's mind. The animation is a little weird, he's kind of just freaking out, although I kind of came up with my own reason for why this happens. I hope it's real. You're collecting all these letter pieces. I'm assuming they're going inside SpongeBob's head because he's a sponge. I could just picture him like stuffing each letter piece in there. And the puzzle that you do when you get all the letter pieces is inside SpongeBob's head. So it's almost like he's moving them around in his own head, and it's like a realistic reason of where all these letter pieces went that will eventually lead you to the next part of the game. So this puzzle is just a quick little slide puzzle. It's very simple, although it's a game made for kids, so I can't imagine you'd want to make it too difficult, because I could just see a kid getting stuck on these things. With some really good music too, I'm not gonna lie. And then after you figure out the puzzle, it'll show you a picture of a treasure chest in a certain area of the game. Doesn't give you too much detail as to where it is, but if you're really good at looking at a surrounding area, or if you see a set piece in the background, you should be able to find it. And that leads us into the treasure hunting section. SpongeBob has his own unique costume, also has a really cool mechanic and use of the rumble feature, where if you hold down the B button, SpongeBob will hold the stick out in front of him and you could rotate it, and when the controller buzzes, it means the treasure's in that direction. Eventually, once you get to the treasure chest, you find one of the Dutchman's treasures, and after you get the treasure, the Dutchman steals Gary away, and that's it. Gary's gone. So it's like, oh shoot, stakes are real now, we gotta go save Gary. Although, to be fair, like, you left him home alone. You know, if you're really worried about Gary, you could have just, like, I don't know, plopped him on your head, walked around with him, so you would have been, you know, there, protecting him. I mean, it's not like you had work or something, like, oh shoot, wait, did he have work? I know he has that dream in the beginning of the game, which, to be fair, is very, very in-your-face foreshadowing, but I don't know. Does the Krusty Krab close? I guess we'll have to find out. Alright, before we actually go to work, we gotta get all the co-workers there. We gotta race Squidward to work, and, oh. What's actually really cute about this is that if you actually, like, let Squidward win, because let's be honest, there's no way he's actually beating you unless you went and got a snack or something, there's actually different dialogue. It's really good attention to detail there.
I've got some difficult news to tell you. Business has been very slow lately, so I'm gonna shut down the Krusty Krab until it picks up again.
Like, come on now. Like, you're the Krusty Krab. Really? You know one's coming? Like, come on now. You're reaching a little bit with that one. Alright, so the Krusty Krab is now doing delivery service, which, like, alright, fine. We're gonna go to downtown Bikini Bottom. One thing I do want to add is that it's so good to have all the voice actors here in this game. The writing's not too bad either, so it really feels like an episode of the show. I mean, it would be weird to have a SpongeBob game where, like, one key member of the voice cast was missing, you know?
Your treasure chest's looking a bit light.
Second reason. I'm not even kidding. So Mr.Krabs is gonna head downtown to try to get some extra business through deliveries. And with all the different worlds in this game, it does a pretty decent job of telling you where you should go next. Although what's really cool is that if you go back to Squidward's house first, you'll be able to access the tree dome, so you could pick between which world you want to do next. There still is a set order of the worlds you need to beat in order to get through the game, but you could still visit different levels whenever you feel like it, or obviously at least when you have what's required to access it. And that's really appreciated. Basically, before you go to downtown, you should check by Squidward as he's having a yard sale to pay for his bills. Squidward's a little too relatable in this game. Oh look, Squidward has a little garden back here. They even add a narrator quote for it. Oh man, I don't have the reef blower yet. I wonder what this is gonna do. I'm excited to come back here and see what's going on. Squidward extremely coincidentally is reading a book about how to defeat evil spirits, and it's like, wow, it's like we're dealing with an evil spirit ourselves. That's crazy. But he won't let us borrow it, but at least we have a reason to now use the sneak mechanic. The book basically tells you that, you know that treasure you picked up a little while ago in Bikini Bottom? Yeah, there are 7 of those scattered across the different worlds, and you gotta collect them so they could defend you against the Dutchman's evil powers. SpongeBob eventually finds an acorn among the items Squidward's selling, but he needs 200 sand dollars to buy it from him. He wants to get it for Sandy because, you know, acorns. I really like, though, that there's a price placed on it. There's only 3 things you can collect in this game. There's sand dollars, there's the golden doubloons, and then there's jellyfish. When I was first walking around the world collecting the coins, I was like, oh, these are just here to fill up space. There's probably no reason we're gonna need to use them, especially the difference between the golden doubloons and the sand dollars. But they actually found a really nice way to make use of them. There's a couple times where you'll need sand dollars to progress. I'm pretty sure all the levels require a certain amount of golden doubloons to get a letter, and there's a certain amount of jellyfish you need to catch to get another letter. Sandy completely Kool-Aid Man's a bunch of boulders blocking her way to the tree dome.
Oh yeah!
But we're gonna get to her a little later. So anyway, we'll come back here. Let's go to downtown Bikini Bottom. Mr.Krabs actually left us a bus ticket, so we have everything we need to go.
So this is downtown Bikini Bottom. How will I ever find Mr. Krabs in such a huge place where the streets never end and the buildings just go on and on and on?
Oh, interesting take on downtown Bikini Bottom. I do like this interpretation of it, although the really dark atmosphere makes it kind of difficult to look at the admittedly a lot of detail they put into this world. But yeah, this is not downtown Bikini Bottom at all. It doesn't look like it, but it's visually distinct, so... But you find Mr. Krabs is gonna have you make some deliveries for him. My man set up a whole grill in the middle of downtown. Like, this is not a good neighborhood at all. He's gonna get robbed in a second. I mean, look at the streets. They're crawling with bullies. Who is this? I mean, who is it? This is completely made up for the game, and I mean, he looks like he fits in, but that hair looks so out of place. I don't know, that doesn't fit. That's the one aspect where it's like, oh, okay, this is an OC. They have a really big head and a really skinny body, so you have to get really close to karate chop them. It's so easy for you to get bitten. Luckily, combat in this game is a pretty big afterthought, so if you just spam the attack button, you could stun lock them, and they'll go down in a couple hits. Downtown is basically going to be used as a delivery service level. You're going to be going to all these different apartments down different streets, making deliveries to houses. What really stinks about downtown being so dark is that they'll give you specific addresses to deliver the food to, and it could be a little tough to see the numbers on the buildings when you're delivering them. Even the streets too. There's a couple street signs scattered throughout the level, but if you're not paying attention, you'll have no idea where you are. I feel like the only reason I did this part so well was because I was just so used to playing it as a kid. Up next, you're going to be going to the construction site. We're going to be doing some more deliveries. And of course, the 2 people that ordered the food are in the most dangerous spots. One of them isn't, but one guy is just straight up in the middle of nowhere and he ordered the food. It's tough too, because Mr. Krabs will just tell you to make deliveries to people, and the first person you see is an enemy, but you wouldn't know that, so you're just going to get attacked, you're going to spill the food, and it's like, alright, thanks buddy. I guess I won't be going to you again. Patrick's also here, and he's doing his Barnacle Boy cosplay, and he saved a Mermaid Man suit just for you, so that's right, you're gonna be unlocking the Mermaid Man outfit. He has a water ball projectile, the music is pretty cool, and he's just fun. You're a superhero, bro. One thing I really like about these costumes is that they all have unique animations. They all share roughly the same movesets. It's a great way to differentiate the costumes and make these moves, which are the same throughout most of them, feel unique. But yeah, the water ball projectiles are pretty cool. It's nice to just have a projectile period. They don't lock on or anything, but the throwing arc is straight ahead, so if you just angle yourself correctly, you'll be alright. After making your deliveries there, you'll be moving on to the high-rise apartment buildings, which is the first instance of the game's camera becoming an issue. Some of the platforms here can be pretty small, and you have to ride these jellyfish up 2 different platforms, and I don't like the jellyfish platforms at all because they're circular, but their bodies are constantly shrinking and expanding, so it could be hard to tell how to get onto it, and it's also curved, so it's so easy to slip off them, and right underneath them, of course, are the tentacles, so if you're falling off a jellyfish, you're gonna get stung, and it's just not a good time. And also, the camera just stays fixed in that one position for the entire section. Obviously, it's gonna move with you, but you can't control the camera at all, and you're still moving up and down when it's basically a side-scrolling level. So you could be moving left, but you can't see any type of curves in the platform, so you don't know how to make your movements more precise, and so often you'll just fall right off the platform because you can't move the camera to see where you are on the platform. But yes, we're going to be doing 1 round of deliveries back in the business district, and these are timed. You have a little over 200 seconds to make like 4 deliveries, and it's tough because you don't know this world very well. Yeah, you've done a little deliveries in the beginning, but that's not enough to really know this level. I could totally see kids getting stuck on this. I know I was when I was younger. I mean, when you're a kid, do you know what an albatross is? Come on now. It really stinks too when you're attacked, because you gotta go all the way back to Mr. Krabs, and this part screwed me up. It was really hard navigating back to Mr. Krabs sometimes. But luckily the enemies are pretty slow, so you're not gonna be getting attacked unless you're right in their face. Mr. Krabs does warn you about another delivery boy running around, and this part like scared me a little bit as a kid. It's like, oh, there's like a secret delivery person running around. What if I run into them? Of course you do. It's just Patrick. He gets the last delivery there before you, and he said he's also working for Mr. Krabs, so it's like, huh? And yeah, that's the end of downtown. It stinks because I went back to try to collect all the other letter tiles, but there's one you just straight up can't get. We have to help Sandy destroy garbage, and I was looking for Sandy for this level, and even thinking about it, I was like, I don't remember this part of the level as a kid, but I figured she was just gonna come at a later point, so you can't actually beat downtown right now, so you gotta do a little backtracking. But again, luckily the worlds aren't too big so that it would be hard to backtrack in. Alright, we're heading back to Bikini Bottom, and, wait, Mr. Krabs, why is the Dutchman stealing our friends? I thought Gary was the only one who disturbed his arrest. What? Bro, no! So they're just gone. Mr. Krabs is just gone. Is he gonna just steal all of our friends? That's a really interesting concept. I don't like how they didn't wait until we completed downtown to steal Mr. Krabs. It's almost like he's doing it at random, when I feel like it would be a lot more impactful if he stole your friends after every treasure you found. So it's like the more progress you're making in the game, the more you lose in return. And this is a really, really cool concept. I love that Bikini Bottom is slowly just getting more barren. It's spooky, dude. That is a really cool way to add to the creepiness factor. Oh, look, there's Patrick running around. Oh, a trailing mission? We gotta follow him? That's pretty cool. He's only running in circles, basically, though, and you could just jump up to a vantage point on Bikini Bottom and just watch him run around, because it's not like he's gonna get far enough where he's gonna stop and wait for you to kind of follow him, but he's also not gonna run too far away so that you can't see him. It's a really weird trailing mission. So after Patrick's done running in circles, he ends up at the Chum Bucket, and it's a good thing downtown was lighted so poorly, because look at his hat. There's just straight up plankton on it, and he's mistaking it for Mr. Krabs. Like, plankton, you couldn't even hide that. Anyway, the imitation Krabs comes out. Really cool callback to the episode. Although it doesn't really look like him, so maybe it's not. The robot blows up, and eventually we're like, oh shoot, it's Plankton, even though, like, come on guys, we're standing outside of the Chum Bucket here. Plankton's role in this game is really interesting, because all the time he's gonna be the main antagonist. He is the main antagonist of the show, but this time he's kind of just playing a secondary role. Like, he's not concerned with stealing the Krabby Patty formula. No, he's trying to open his own theme park. And Mr. Lawrence's delivery on this line is just so cool.
Chum World!
Like, he just makes it sound so important. Chum World is one of the later levels in the game, but I guess it's cool that's being introduced. Plankton's like, yeah, I opened my theme park, so I'm gonna go chill at Jellyfish Fields. And that's it. Like, Plankton's just doing his own thing in this game, and it's a little refreshing. Although it is kind of funny in hindsight, like, Mr. Krabs is gone, Plankton. Like, you won. You're good. And he's just like, I'm chilling, I'm going on vacation. Like, it's like, oh. But yeah, Chum World comes much later. They kind of say, oh, you should go to Jellyfish Fields soon. We'll get back to that in a second, though, because now we have to go get Sandy her gift. All right, we finally bought Sandy her acorn, and now it is time to go to the tree dome. Really weird placement of the tree dome. I never expected it to be so close to SpongeBob and Patrick's house. It could have just been its own open area in Bikini Bottom. All right, before we go to the tree dome, though, we have to have a karate match with Sandy, and this is one of the other area-specific costumes. You can't select this from the tent. The karate gear, it's really cool. You only use these a couple times in the game to bash a bunch of stuff, and the objective of these levels is to bash more stuff than your opponent. The music is pretty cool, and the moves are kind of inconsequential, to be honest. You're just gonna be mashing the B button the whole time. They try to tell you about like flying kicks and stuff, but stuff doesn't drop from the air, so it's like, why wouldn't you just mash the ground button?
Visiting Sandy in her tree dome. Where else in Bikini Bottom can you worry about dying from all this air? That's strange. I don't feel as dry as I usually do, and I don't need my helmet at all. Oh, the ground in here is soaking wet.
SpongeBob! Get your squishy little body over here! Help!
Sandy gets salty that she lost and completely wrecks her tree dome. Like, Sandy, are you good? So we gotta go in there and we gotta plug up the holes with a bunch of different acorns. The throwing arc of them is a little weird, to be fair. It's gonna take a couple throws to get used to it, but it's not too bad. I really like, though, that they use the water spilling into the tree dome, like the grass is all wet, as a justification for why SpongeBob doesn't have his helmet on. You could argue that's just a lazy way to not program the helmet, but they went to so much work to having the level be all wet that I feel like it would be less work for the developers to program on a helmet. You're kind of just running around getting whatever letter tiles you can find before giving Sandy her acorn. This challenge right here where you have to run across the little wheel for a minute is funny, and then I realized you could just jump in place basically, and it completely guts the challenge. But yeah, you give Sandy her acorn, she puts it up in her tree, and it's a beehive, and it's weird because the beehive is actually much bigger, but in this little jar it's tiny. I don't know, it's weird that it changed sizes like that. One thing I really like is how they stick to the whole the ground is all moisturized type of deal. Like, there are these holes when you're platforming across the top of the tree that I was just waiting for enemies to pop out of, and then they weren't popping out, so I was like, oh, maybe they just forgot to program them in. But no, if you look closely you could see water's pouring out of the tree, so it's just another justification for why SpongeBob doesn't need his helmet. The tree dome is a really small level, so it won't take long to get all the letter tiles, although for the last one you have to go into Sandy's room and beat her in one final karate match. The floor is also apparently made of ice because the way the bed just slides across the floor is like, well, alright, Sandy's not that strong. But yes, you finally get all the letter tiles, and oh, I really like this. So SpongeBob's head is decorated to look like the level you just completed. That's really cute. You find the treasure chest, and now Squidward is abducted, and I really like this. Look at Dutchman's little fishing pole. He has items of the thing the character would like so that he could entice them to join his crew. That's cool. But yeah, these characters are just dropping like flies, so let's get all these treasures going. Up next is Jellyfish Fields, and to be honest, I had no idea where I was supposed to go for a second. I don't remember getting a ticket. Maybe I had to complete something first. Eventually, from just walking around Bikini Bottom, I found a jellyfish holding a ticket, so it's just there. I don't really like that. Bikini Bottom's not that big, so I'm sure you would just see it from walking around, but it's like there's no indication that you would need to just find a random jellyfish holding the bus ticket. Regardless though, we finally make it to Jellyfish Fields.
There's nothing like a little playtime in Jellyfish Fields to make everything right again.
Finally, we have some fish NPCs. Granted, there were those two we had to deliver food to in downtown, but those are characters that we need. These are just people chilling, just fish chilling in Jellyfish Fields. There's kids running around, there's a swing set, there's big dudes in the river, a waterfall. This doesn't really look like Jellyfish Fields, actually. Granted, Jellyfish Fields is a really prevalent setting in the show, so I'm sure there were some points where we've seen lakes and rivers and stuff, but it's never been like mountainous or anything. They're fields, they're long open plains. Although, even though it's not faithful, I think it gives the world a lot more depth, and it's a lot more fun to play that way. So we're going around catching some jellyfish, bouncing off clams, doing the little puzzles. The one I remember the most, even as a kid, was riding the great white jellyfish. It's not very hard, although the jellyfish's weird platform size can sometimes be difficult to maneuver, and the ride is pretty long, but it's just a good set piece for the level. Getting these pearls to open these treasure chests are also a very interesting take on platforming because you can't glide while holding something, so it adds a little bit of challenge. I also always remember this race with Patrick as a kid, although now that I'm a little older and realize there's a lot of ways you can get to that point by gliding or doing some quick jumps, it's extremely easy. But none of this compares to not only Jellyfish Fields, but the entire game's most infamous quest, the jellyfishing competition. This quest requires you to catch 100 jellyfish, and what's really cool about this quest is the prize is the reef blower. It's the last costume you need, and since it's a costume and not something like doubloons or sand dollars, it actually gives you a lot more motivation to complete it. Plus, it's so many jellyfish, it's really cool. Up until this point, you'll need to catch a much smaller amount of jellyfish in each world, like 20, 25 to get a letter tile, but 100, that's a big ask. But it is appropriate because it is Jellyfish Fields, there is jellyfish jellyfish everywhere. And what's really cool about the game is that they make each jellyfish feel at least a little unique. Granted, the uniqueness really does just come from different colors. I couldn't really tell if any jellyfish were swimming faster or not because of it, but just having different colors is visually a lot more appealing. Although there is this green one who you need to sneak up on or else it'll fly away. So there's at least one jellyfish that acts a little differently. So alright, we're going around Jellyfish Fields, we're catching every jellyfish. Again, since the levels aren't very big, you're not really gonna get lost, and the jellyfish you come across are pretty easily seen. But then you get to a point where you just can't find anymore, and you only have 84 jellyfish. So you look in, you can't find any, and you just get stuck. And as a kid, I did get stuck. I just could not find the rest of the jellyfish. You'd think there's another area you're missing, but no. It turns out, Jellyfish Fields only has 84 jellyfish in it. So why require 100? Well, it turns out the HUD on the screen is not your total count, only the total of that level. If you press the pause button, then you get your total counts, and you'll see your jellyfish count is likely a lot higher considering you've caught jellyfish in other levels, which you need to anyway because of the required tiles. This is horrible. First of all, how would you know this? Second, you've never needed to check the main menu up until now for total counts, and the game hasn't told you about that either. Also, the game hasn't had this problem before. There's that point where you need to buy the acorn for Sandy. You know, you need 200 sand dollars. When you get all the sand dollars in downtown and you go back to Bikini Bottom, the screen, not the main menu, the screen that you're just normally playing on, still shows the $200+ you have. So it all does add up on the main screen, but just not for jellyfish. Not to mention, this competition is happening in Jellyfish Fields. The competition is named after the location it is taking place in. So even then, you could be mistaken for thinking that they were talking about jellyfish specifically in Jellyfish Fields. The game constantly references the fact that this is a game by telling you press the action button to do this. So why not just say press this button to check your total count? Dude, all these letter tiles are required. You can't just have people get stuck on something like that, because if they get stuck, they're not just missing the letter tile, they're missing out on the entire rest of the game. This quest, as simple as it is, completely ruins the pace of this game, and with just one instance of extremely important and necessary information not being said to the player, brings a playthrough to a screeching halt. I feel like so many players who beat this quest for the first time beat it by just randomly talking to Rusty, not knowing what to do next, rather than actually knowing how many jellyfish they had. But alright, whatever. We got the reef blower now. We have all the costumes. Oh look, SpongeBob let all the snails out.
Stop! My poor snails!
Gee, sorry about that. I've never used one of those before.
From now on, use a changing tent to put on that reef blower, just to be safe.
No, 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 no. This game constantly references the show. It references Hooky, SpongeBob knows Sandy, and Plankton, who are introduced in Tea at the Tree Dome and Plankton respectively. You know what all those episodes have in common? They take place after the episode Reef Blower, the second episode in the series, in which when I was a kid I thought it was the first episode because they couldn't talk, so I thought, wow, it seems really old if they didn't even talk yet. But no, it's the second episode of the show, comes before all of this, and SpongeBob knew how to use a reef blower. So no, you are not allowed to just do that unless you're trying to explain a timeline in which this episode actually comes much later in the timeline. So which one is it? The reef blower can attack, but to be honest, combat isn't this game's strong suit, so you could just belly slam enemies and they'll go down. But you know, you just got the reef blower, it comes late in the game, you want to get use out of it, so you know, we're gonna stick with it. So you eventually see Plankton, and he's placed right at the entrance of an area, so whenever you go back to the area Plankton's in, you're welcome to him just repeating what he says. It's a little annoying, but I get it. Plankton's really small and it would have been super easy to miss him, so they put him in a place where you had to speak with him. There's a clown from Chum World running around in Jellyfish Fields, and he has the a bus ticket. Plankton wants you to go get him, but like, I'm sure he'd be suspicious we'd take the bus ticket, so you find the clown in a pretty annoying platforming section, to be honest, because again, jellyfish platforms, the amount of time you have to wait to get up the hill, that one platform you just keep falling off of. And there we go, we find the clown at the top of this hill, and he's challenging us to a boss battle? Let's go!
Okay, I give up.
Bro! One hit? We've had enemies that have taken multiple hits. One hit. Guys, was this played for laughs? It's funny, but like, you have to let us know that was played for laughs, because it just looks a little pathetic. But yes, you find the treasure in Jellyfish Fields. It's a pair of glasses, and this is the only treasure that doesn't get an ew from the audience when every other treasure did, either because it's not gross or they just forgot to add it. Then Patrick gets taken from the Flying Dutchman, although he willingly gets taken.
Listen, am I going to be part of your crew or not?
He just wants to play pirate. That's adorable. Now we're gonna use the reef blower to clean up a little bit, but first, finally, we get to see what the Squidward garden does! Bro! Why did you build this up? Why? It's coins! No. So I got stuck at Jellyfish Fields as a kid for so long. And then when I finally went back to this game years later, it was like the whole rest of the game was unlocked. Like, you all know that feeling. So like, it's just so great to know that all this time, what I've been wondering about with this garden was coins. Awesome. Anyway, we go back to downtown, we help Sandy with the trash. Then Sandy gets stolen, and now the world is really starting to feel empty. Everyone's gone now. We only have 2 levels left, and we better start moving. And the game must have also felt that way as well, because we get introduced to Chad Larry. It's like, you should have just had him there at some point. He just feels so slapped into this game because no one else was here. Also, Larry is doing Mr.Krabs' animations. They just slapped his on Larry's, and they're so stiff. Like, yeah, I had the complaint that the animations are a little wonky and wacky and too much is going on, but Mr.Krabs and Larry's animation is so stiff in comparison. It's one of those animations where they just cycle through the same 3 or 4 poses, and they move together so stiffly. This might be the same case for the other characters, although I didn't notice it as much as I do here. It's so robotic.
Listen, nothing will convince me to give away this extra ticket. Well, maybe for 50 jellyfish.
Why? Why? We have to catch 50 jellyfish now? We just did a jellyfishing quest, a big jellyfishing quest, and every level will still require you to catch a certain amount of jellyfish. And the numbers are getting higher now because they're later levels. This game, look, catching jellyfish is fun. It's cute. It's a nice little thing to do during the game, but like, it totally unbalances the costume mechanic. You're gonna be in the jellyfishing costume so often now, catching the jellyfish. You're totally favoring one costume, and I don't want to be in this costume the whole game. I like the Mermaid Man outfit, but it gets almost 0 use. And the reef blower, the costume you just got, is already getting pushed to the side because we have to do more jellyfishing hunting. Oh shoot, I forgot we got to unlock Squidward's Spice Garden. We also basically just cleaned up the jellyfish in Jellyfish Fields and in a lot of the other levels too, so it's not like we'll be going to Goo Lagoon next. So we're gonna head to Chum World.
Look out, Chum World! Here I come!
What's really cool about Chum World is that it's a unique location to the series. To be fair, this could have totally just been Glove World, and if you take away the name, it is Glove World. I mean, except for obviously all the gloves. But it's just nice to see that there's some uniqueness this game added, and if there's a super fan out there of SpongeBob, like, this is going in the lore. There are even some more fish NPCs, that's really cool. And the Mermaid Man costume actually gets use in one of the tiles. You have to extinguish these fire targets, and it's nice that the Mermaid Man costume found another use. I don't think it's used again, but it's cool looking. Like, it's cool looking, so we'll give it that. Also, some of the clowns are NPCs that are just random people, and some are enemies. Like, you can't do that. Like, I know I complained about the workers in downtown, but at least they're different models once you know it. You're not gonna know this. You're just gonna get hit. I guess you could tell, like, oh, they're running towards you, might be an enemy. But like, bro, you can't make the non-attacking NPCs the same as enemies. know. Make them a different color or something. Like, come on. A lot of the tiles here are just carnival games, and that's really neat. A lot of them are very simple, to be fair. Like belly bouncing just 4 buttons in a row is a little boring. But like the mini golf one is a pretty hefty one. It actually gives use to the reef blower. I could get people getting frustrated by these controls. I mean, pushing this giant ball around with a little reef blower isn't the most fun thing. Maybe I just have a little more practice because I've played this part a good amount of times before talking about it now. But I didn't find it that bad, and it's a pretty decent challenge. But my favorite one has to be climbing the big top. It's just a big platforming sequence, but the atmosphere is so great. The audience boos if you fall down and cheers if you make it past a certain platforming section. And it's really cool just getting to the top. You really get that sense of scale. Unfortunately, there is one letter tile here that you can't get because Plankton's just not here. So we do have to leave this level and come back. Hopefully you've been catching the jellyfish because we have to now go to Goo Lagoon. I hope you guys are looking for trouble.
Goo Lagoon, the sand, the surf. There is nothing like being at the ocean. Except being under the ocean.
Okay, what is this color palette? It looks like a desert. I think the color palette alone doesn't make it very faithful looking. Besides that, it's a beach. They have the snack bar, which, I mean, was in Goo Lagoon. It's fine, it's okay. But this does have a lot of cool areas.
Hey, no running on the beach.
Oh my goodness. Alright, I guess it's time to talk about the audio. So the music is really weird in this game because it seems to be structured in a sense where character dialogue and music both share the same track. So whenever a character speaks, the music is cut off, their line is the only audio happening in the game, and then the music continues.
Let's get this ball rolling.
In the PS2 version specifically, I'm playing the GameCube version, so what's the difference? Well, whenever a character speaks or you pause the game, whatever interrupts audio, the song doesn't continue. It restarts.
Looks like something in my backyard is blocking the door.
It's so weirdly put together. The only times the audio isn't fighting for the main audio is like sound effects, like grunts when someone's hit, or like when SpongeBob's jumping or rolling, like little sounds like that. But anytime someone actually speaks, the audio is cut off and then comes back on as soon as it's over. And that's certainly a problem for the enemies here. They have dialogue. So like just a random enemy is just gonna say his generic line and then the audio is gonna restart.
Are you looking for trouble?
It is not well put together at all. Goo Lagoon also has golden doubloons and sand dollars combined as currency here. Of course the jellyfish are there too, but at one point you do have to make it to the dock, so you do have to walk around collecting a lot of sand dollars. There is this one point where you have to platform against lifeguard stands, so you beat the lifeguards in each one, and then each one gets progressively bigger, although they all basically fight the same, where you kind of just have to spam hits on them, and the size doesn't really change much. It doesn't really strengthen their attacks or anything. I don't even think they hit any faster. It's just, oh, they're scarier sized.
Excuse me, but can I sit on your lifeguard stand?
Of course not. Now beat it, you little wimp.
But like, still scarier than the clown in Jellyfish Fields. Rusty Buckets is here again, the guy who was doing the jellyfishing competition. Of course, the guy who needed 100 jellyfish is also in the area that required 50 jellyfish to enter, so it makes sense, I guess. Don't really want to be seeing this guy right now, but he does need 200 sand dollars to access the pier, so man, they really just made the most unlikable character they could for this game. At least we ruined his fence, I guess. We make it to the pier, we do this platforming section where the camera really messes you up because it's in a similar situation to the high-rise apartments where it's fixed in a position and then there are platforms that are going diagonally and it's all above goo, which is an instant death. So you go down this long section, then the Dutchman comes and starts destroying the pier. It's really weird though because SpongeBob comments that the boat's getting closer while the captain is still steering, so I guess he already wasn't doing a very good job. I mean, look at how he's steering. So you're just trying to get back, and if you fall at any time, you gotta do the whole thing again. I'm not talking about walking back. I'm talking about walking there, watching watching the unskippable cutscene and then walking back. It's not that bad, just be patient. But yeah, the Dutchman's not playing around. What's worse though is that you gotta go back to this area through the wreckage to find a letter tile, and it is a pretty challenging platforming section. Again, the goo is an instant death, so you're gonna be getting sent back a lot. Also, the platforms are gonna be moving a lot, and you can't cheese it either. Once you get to the end of the wreckage and get the letter tile, that's the new checkpoint. There is like one checkpoint, I believe, through like the middle part of this whole platforming sequence. But yeah, you gotta be ready for this, and also bring a good amount of patience your way. Oh shoot, we almost forgot Larry. So yeah, Larry's around the snack bar and he has like a championship belt. Larry's actually really rude in this game.
Well, 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 look what the tide washed in.
But yeah, SpongeBob's just trying to get the letter tile from Larry, and SpongeBob's not cool, so Larry runs away to a lighthouse. Alright, let's go see this lighthouse, and oh. So yeah, if the whole ship wreckage platforming section wasn't too hard, you have to scale an entire lighthouse, which is really challenging because platforms are really small and you could get damaged and knocked off. Granted, it's not an instant death most of the time, but also the angles you have to jump up to. This is a pretty challenging platforming section itself. There's also different areas to the lighthouse. Once you finally scale the whole thing, you go to another area, which granted isn't hard at all. And then you go to the very top, which is surrounded by thunderclouds and jellyfish. It's not a super challenging platforming section in comparison, but man, the atmosphere is there, and Larry's just there in the middle of all this. He really went this far to escape SpongeBob. It's really funny. And then he just runs away. This man just got inconvenienced and then went ahead and just did one of the hardest platforming challenges in the game, like just because. Like he just didn't want to be here. Like look at this guy. But yeah, you're getting letter tiles along the way. Eventually you'll find Larry and he's challenging you to a karate match. Oh shoot, the big button mashing fest is coming. One thing Larry says in this part is anything goes, which is weirdly intimidating since it means Larry's gonna be hitting you on purpose sometimes. Although considering you are just gonna be mashing the attack button this whole time, it doesn't really matter. You're just gonna be hitting Larry too. We've gotten his respect and the letter from the championship title. In between Goo Lagoon and Chum World, the Dutchman's gonna try and recruit SpongeBob himself, but we've collected enough treasures to protect us from the Dutchman's magic. But we need the rest of them to break the spell over SpongeBob's friends, although I guess Patrick's good. We go back to Chum World and get that final letter tile from Plankton. We chase him down, although you could really finish it in a couple seconds. And then we get the worst designed SpongeBob's head puzzle in the game. Really, they just do a bunch of barrels. That's supposed to show off Chum World's theme, and there's some balloons attached to it, but you're really just looking at barrels. After Goo Lagoon and Chum World, the Dutchman is no longer taking people from Bikini Bottom, which is weird because he could have just taken Larry and Plankton, although I guess they're not considered SpongeBob's friends. Although, like, you have characters that are in the main cast here. You had a good progression system there. Catching wind of SpongeBob collecting all the treasures, the Dutchman flies the ship out to SpongeBob's house and starts destroying it. With the cannon flying out of the ship, you'll be able to jump into it and fly yourself to the final world of the game, the Dutchman's Graveyard.
Gary! Patrick!
I thought this part was really funny. When SpongeBob gets here, he gets all nervous, and it's the narrator who gives SpongeBob the pep talk to keep going.
Brace up, little fellow. Your friends are counting on you now more than ever. Only you can save them from the revenge of the Flying Dutchman.
The guy who's kind of just doing his own thing. He's the reason SpongeBob keeps going. It's a weird, but it's like adorable at the same time. Dutchman's Graveyard feels weird. There's still different areas, but it is so linear. The point of this entire world is just a linear path of returning gold doubloons to the pirates. All of which are tied together with a lot, very long, drawn out booty jokes.
Be ye here to steal my booty? I could barely get my hands around all that booty. I could have sworn I saw someone who looked like you just before my booty was pinched.
I know it's funny for kids, like, haha, I get it, butts, you know, the thing that farts, but these go on, and they're so descriptive. Eventually, SpongeBob's like, come on, let me just go already.
Let me guess, you lost some booty, you want some more booty.
But yeah, each area is just you returning a pirate back his booty, and it's just this little linear path in each area, and the cannon will shoot you to the next portion. It's really, really straightforward, this area. You're getting the letter tiles in a specific order, basically, except for like a couple that are kind of doing its own thing, and you know, the jellyfish and coin ones. And because the objectives are so repetitive and the structure of each area is so linear, even the more set piece stuff, like the spinning Dutchman head and the swinging anchors you have to shoot through, feel a lot more unimpressive to actually maneuver through. So even though this is the final world, it is still one of the 8 worlds, so we do have to get the final treasure. Which, because of the world's linear structure, putting the treasure at the end of the world does make you have to traverse through it again. One last victory lap, in a sense. After that, you just platform around the ship, picking up all your friends, which very awkwardly transition to a lifeboat on the side floating around the ship. Characters like Squidward have the advantage of being able to have space to walk, so the transition looks more natural. But for a character like Mr.Krabs, who is located at the very top of the ship in the crow's nest, just floats away. They didn't even add like a jump effect or like animate anything. He just floats away. It is so awkward looking. And this is the climax of the game. But whatever, we get all our friends to the lifeboat, and it is finally time for the final boss, the Flying Dutchman. SpongeBob is so afraid that his eyelashes disappear, and his fingers bend backwards. Ooh. One thing I really don't like about this part is that the narrator chimes in again, and he tells you that just because you have all the treasures doesn't mean you're immune to the Dutchman's powers, because the book Squidward was reading was out of date. Like, you knew this the whole time, and you tell us this now? Like, you just didn't say anything. Like, come on. like, why would we hide that? Why did you do that? I mean, obviously it just means the fight is gonna be a fight and not just a one-sided beatdown, but like, come on, man, what is that explanation? It just feels like the game is making up rules as it goes. But yeah, the fight's not really hard at all. If you do lose it, it does have like a bad ending, which I really appreciate. But yeah, the fight really isn't that hard at all. The game doesn't have a lot of combat in it to begin with, so having a boss fight at all, no, you don't count, is something. You just wait for the Dutchman to drop these bombs, which you throw at him 3 times, and if you're fast enough, you could throw multiple in one round, so the fight could be over pretty quick.
You'll never defeat me!
Wait, the Dutchman spoke, and the music didn't stop. In fact, there are some parts where characters speak, and the music doesn't stop.
Bucking Broncos!
Why does this lifeguard make the music stop? I could understand like maybe characters like speaking, like you could see them as like mini cutscenes, I guess. It's still annoying, but like the lifeguard, man, why? Why is he so important? Afterwards, the Dutchman is sucked up back into his bottle, and you fly off with your friends on the lifeboat. It feels weird to end the game in the Dutchman's graveyard, even though there is playful banter with the characters reuniting, but it would have been a lot nicer if like in the credits you saw the characters back in Bikini Bottom with some nice closure to the whole game. But at the end of the day, we accomplished what we set out to do. We saved our friends, and we defeated the Flying Dutchman.
Of course, you know this is coming out of your paychecks.
Alright, we did it, guys. We beat the Flying Dutchman. We stopped him from getting his revenge. Excuse me for a second, I'm sorry. I was just throwing a coat on. It's getting a little chilly in here, you know? This game has a lot of issues in it that we are about to discuss now that we finished it, but let's talk about the biggest one that is permeating throughout the entire game: the music. This game's soundtrack has 9 songs. Only 9 songs. And you may be thinking, well, okay, there's like 8 areas, each song has an area, there's an extra song in there, you've been playing it for each area, what's the problem? And you'd be right, each area does have a song. Like Chum World has its own song, the Dutchman's Graveyard has its own song, but most of the area's songs are not because of said area. It is from the costume you wear. Yes, the jellyfishing gear, SpongeBob's regular clothes, the Mermaid Man outfit, and the reef blower all have songs specific to them. This is because the developers said it would be more fun to have the music linked to each costume. And you know what? I can understand that. I do think it's a unique concept, and if I had to think of any game where music was linked to a costume you wore, this is the only game I'd think of. So in that sense, that it is unique. I will give them that. The problem with that is that each song is about a minute and a half, and you could potentially, for the most part, be hearing the same minute and a half loop for the entire game.
You're going to be wearing the jellyfishing gear at least once in every single world, which not only means aesthetically you're going to be wearing the same thing, you're going to be hearing the same minute 30 loop of this song for most of the game. And man, it gets so grating. That relaxing jellyfish tune, that little whistle that's going on, eventually feels like the game's trying to hypnotize you. The song is going to be on for so long and repeating so much that it doesn't even sound like a song anymore, it's just noise. And continuing with the audio problems, they don't even repeat with a good flow. You could tell very clearly that the song is skipping to restart.
Not to mention the potential of the atmosphere of the gameplay clashing with the atmosphere of the music. The songs themselves aren't bad, they do a good job of setting up an atmosphere, but when they're constantly replayed, it just makes you not want to hear them at all. This, along with a lot of other things that just aren't presented very well.
The loading screens are just static bubbles popping up, not even fading in, just popping up. Then you have things like the font used for the inventory. It's such a basic looking font too. It doesn't look stylized, at least not for the SpongeBob branding at all, and there's not even a shadow behind them, so in some areas it just looks like it's just random text from a debug mode.
And you guys remember back in the day when you would turn on your Nintendo Wii and you'd press the A button, and the noise of that A button being pressed will show you how loud the intro to the Wii menu would be, and you're quickly scrambling to lower the volume? At least you guys had that. This game, I'm just gonna give you a couple seconds to lower the volume, because like... At least the Wii had a warning. But I think one of the biggest missteps this game has seems to be pretty intentional, and that's just the overall tone.
But yeah, this game is supposed to be like scary, like, oh, the Dutchman, like not actually scary, it's a scary character. But the game is like very scary for no reason. I think that's why it was a little off-putting. And I could even tell that different vibe even as a kid. There's a lot of factors that come into this. A big one might just be the overall presentation of the game. It is very simple looking, it's not very polished, the animations are a little weird. Makes the game feel a little uncanny in some ways. Then there is the premise of the game where all of the characters are slowly being removed from the world. So in a game where you can already feel kind of empty due to lack of NPCs, that emptiness just grows as the game goes on. And then you have actually talking to people. It's a weird choice to just have dialogue cut off music. Like, I get it, you want background music for like a cutscene, but there is no background music, so there's just no music. It makes every line of dialogue feel that much more important, which is almost never the case because most of the time the music is being cut off. It's for lines like this.
Get out of my belly, square thingy!
So now the music's gone. You're in this empty world. A big black border begins to surround you. And then you have characters like the narrator who gets so close to the microphone. It's drawing you in. It feels like at any second something is going to jump out at you and scare you. It's just that sense of aloneness. It's so eerie, this game.
And I do want to reiterate, I do think the premise of the characters slowly being taken away to motivate you to save them is a really good idea. Like, I think that works really well. But just a lot of the factors I just mentioned, also including the fact that you're in these worlds that are feeling a little boxed in at times because of the mentioned out of bounds thing in the beginning of the video, it doesn't do a really good job of making the characters still feel comfortable. Like, it has this premise that could very easily be intimidating and off-putting, and it kind of unintentionally runs with it, instead of making the player feel safe still. I really do think more NPCs would have helped, like, just make the world feel at least a little more alive, but maybe it wouldn't have worked super well just because the NPCs that are in the game don't really animate
I will stand by the game controlling very well. I like the floatiness of it all. It's really easy to maneuver in the air. Every character has a glide, so movement really isn't an issue for me. I love that the whole cast is here, the writing is pretty good, the worlds float together pretty nicely with bus stops. There are those little extra things you can interact with, like I said, like Squidward's garden, even though the reward is horrible, the stuff in SpongeBob's house. A lot of the models overall looked fine, except for Patrick's lips, which are just black for some reason. All the references with the costumes are really neat. Then there's just the creativity of stuff, using the clams as bounce pads. I know I complained about them, but the fact that jellyfish are platforms in a lot of instances is really creative. Even the main menu is very charming. It's the kitchen, you see the patties grilling, you get to go to extras and see little videos and concept art from the show. It's adorable.
You could tell the developers really cared about SpongeBob. It's just a shame they weren't around for long.
Big Sky Interactive made this game and Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, both releasing in 2002, with the company also declaring bankruptcy in 2002. A lot of people will think it's because of the poor performance of the SpongeBob game, maybe the jellyfishing hunt, or in the PS2 version, there's a famous loading screen glitch which will delete all your save data, which is horrible. That's a horrible bug to not know about, but it actually wasn't the reason the studio went under.
Them wanting to stay a freelance company and not be bought out by the much bigger THQ led a THQ executive to blackball them from the gaming industry, which would then lead to them not getting any more video game licenses and of course not making them any more money. There's a really fantastic video out there that goes in depth about the history of Big Sky as a developer and is where I got a lot of my facts for this video about them. I'll put it in the description so you guys can go check it out.
It's messed up what can go on behind the scenes, and this is a real shame because even though it's easy to make fun of how the game looks, and trust me, there's a lot of problems with how this game looks. It doesn't look polished at all. There's so many animation errors. The animation itself is very awkward looking. I gotta admit though, even without playing Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, just seeing it in comparison means there's at least improvement. Jimmy Neutron's face was just a static image, and at least in SpongeBob it's not very good. It's definitely an improvement, so I don't think it's more of the game developers being untalented or anything like that. I just think they needed more time to develop their games and more experience.
So yeah, I can't hate on this game, and I admit a lot of it is from nostalgia, but there's a couple things I think I can really appreciate even without the nostalgia. One aspect I really do like about tying this into the developers is that this was made by a smaller developer around the time when SpongeBob was a smaller show. It wasn't this big Nickelodeon mascot yet. It wasn't the face of the company. It was getting there for sure, but right now it was just a simpler show with a simpler game to go with it. And it's a cool time capsule in that sense, you know? Like, this is SpongeBob before it exploded in popularity and it had all these expectations behind it. I can't really get mad. It's not for me, you know, and that's not to say that kids deserve games that are like lesser than what an adult can enjoy. A game should be enjoyed by all ages, like a Mario game, you know? But besides like the jellyfishing hunt, I don't think there's a problem playing it. It's a game that's easy to understand and a game you could just sit back and enjoy. And that's the third reason why I enjoyed this as a kid more than Battle for Bikini Bottom. It was just easier to understand. This is a game from my childhood, really meant a lot to me as a child, and going back, there are a lot of things that don't hold up, but I think at its core, it's fine. And it gave me a lot of memories, so all I could say now, going back, oh man, I don't even know how many years it's been. It's been a lot though. Thank you. That's cringe. That's really cringe. Regardless though, thank you guys all for watching, and I hope whatever games you guys are playing right now, it's bringing you as much joy as SpongeBob SquarePants Revenge of the Flying Dutchman did for me. Oh man, I finally made a video on this game. I was weird because like I was thinking maybe this should be like an April Fool's video because it's a game that, you know, a lot of people like to dunk on. But then I was like, oh, Halloween, and then I just didn't get it done for Halloween. So I don't know. I'm just happy I made it. You know what I mean? I guess now this is opening the door for more SpongeBob games, although the Nickelodeon video definitely did. I'd love to speak about more Nicktoons games. I want to get into the Unite series, the Nicktoons crossover games. I might do that one next. I don't know if you guys noticed my shirt. It's never in because of the dot so low. Wearing a Danny Fenton shirt. That's who I was for Halloween this year. And if you guys caught that, you're like the only person that did. But I can't even blame them because Danny Phantom is the big recognizable one. I really would love to play a Danny Phantom game. I know there's 2 that are on handhelds, Game Boy Advanced and Nintendo DS. But it's just like, man, I wish there was a console game. I'm really loving the series. I never watched it really growing up, so it's really awesome to get into Nicktoons that I just never really did as a kid. I was much more the SpongeBob guy. But who knows where the future will go, I guess, in terms of console games for Danny Phantom, and of course more SpongeBob. The Nicktoons Unite series is where to go next. Not the next video, but the next Nicktoons video. I could totally see myself doing that, and if it's not, very soon, definitely. But regardless, thank you guys so much for watching this video. As always, I really appreciate you guys. You know, you make this stuff fun to do. And I'm happy I could, hopefully, give you guys some entertainment. I'd like to say I'm going to go watch Danny Phantom Season 2, Episode 2 right now. That's where I'm up to, if you guys were wondering. But I'm probably just going to go to bed. I am ready for bed. So, you guys all have a great one, and I'll see you all soon.